All right, so we are back. This is take 2 of our office hours here on Friday. I am your host, Benjamin Krause. Today we're going to be talking about veteran readiness and employment, which should come as a shock to nobody, but we are going to be talking about that. And this is our second take. So the first take, the Facebook gods did not allow this live stream to show up in the group for which it was created. So that's always fun. I have no idea why. But as most of you have noticed, it is extremely difficult to get social media to work correctly anymore. They just don't seem to want people to be able to use it the way that it originally worked to do. So, I am fall into that camp. We do here talk about things that may not be flattering to the federal government, and so it does on occasion maybe result in some of the reach being minimized. And so unfortunately here, that may include this particular live stream for whatever reason, and I'll have to research it later. But I'm going to go with it for now, and if it doesn't show up in our group... Oh, wait, it showed up this time. What are the odds? That is just incredible. So we had to shut it down and then bring it back up. That's live. We are live today talking about how to apply for VR&E the right way and how to win at your first VR&E appointment. Don't blow it. All right, here we go. All right, so hopefully some folks are going to check in. I will definitely be taking questions because if we don't do questions, it's boring, right, folks? I mean, we want questions. And I have answers, and will travel. So hit that connect button thing in the chat, and we'll get into it. So basically, when you go in for VR&E benefits, it's super important that you put the accurate and useful information forward and not talk about all this other stuff that a lot of veterans believe that they should be talking about in a session with somebody that is a counselor. So the issue that we're running into here with VR&E, a lot of veterans don't really understand what kind of a counselor they're talking to. They think it's a therapist or somebody that's going to be their buddy or their friend. Big mistake. Don't do that because that's not why you're there. So we're going to be talking about what this means, some of my concerns about veteran readiness and employment that have been long-standing and challenging for the veteran community. And we're, again, going to get into it. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you have questions and you happen to see this on YouTube or on Facebook, put your question in the comment section. I otherwise won't see it. I generally don't see comments from Twitter or from LinkedIn, unfortunately. So if you have a question and it shows up in those platforms, I won't see it, which is a bummer. But that, here we go. See that? I just got a new camera for my computer. Hello, camera. This happened before. And so it sometimes just decides not to focus on my face, which is fine. I mean, if I were the camera, I would not want to focus on my face either. So that's okay. I don't take it personally, but I definitely want the thing to work. So if you have questions, ask the questions below. I will do my best to answer them. I have been doing this for a long time. A little bit about me. I am not just a client. Hey, Hugh, good to see you. I'm not just a client of VR&E. I'm also a member, okay? So I do represent veterans in their VR&E appeals. We do win these. These are winnable things when the information is conveyed correctly and accurately by the veteran. They are generally unwinnable when the opposite happens. And we're going to talk about that because I want to make sure that when you're applying for veteran readiness and employment, or if you need to hire me, or if you're just a guy trying, or a woman, or whatever you are anymore, trying to do it on your own, I want you to win, right? Because at the end of the day, I think that God wants more veterans to be in leadership positions within America. And I think Americans would be better off if that were the case. And I don't mean like veterans as in like Lieutenant General such and such, or Brigadier General such and such. Those are not the kinds of veterans I'm referring to, because those are the typical veterans that we do see in positions of authority and have seen for decades and decades and decades, and those are not the veterans I'm talking about. What I want to see more of are lower level veterans, officers enlisted, into positions of authority, people that have been at the bottom and worked their way up. I feel like this group, this bootstrap group of veterans, would have very informative views about a lot of things, and I want that group, that population, not more generals. And God bless you, when you're at the country club or with your good gig at the lobbying firm, I hope that goes well. But I'm talking about veterans here who are lower level, and we're lower level in the service, and are now trying to become leaders later. And I feel like elevating this population is what God wants me to do. I think it's super important, and we enjoy it. So that's a little bit about me and what I am doing. So if you have any questions, again, put them below. Hugh is awesome. He's on board here. And if you happen to have any questions at all about your initial case or other things, feel free to ask those. I have noticed that some of the comments have not been coming through at times, and so that's a bit of a challenge. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn or Twitter, I may not see the comment or question. If it's somewhere else, then hopefully I'll see it. Usually Facebook and YouTube works. The other ones don't. So, I apologize in advance if I don't get to your questions. Or if they don't show up until after the stream is over, which is what happened last time. So anyway, we're going to talk about first, what is the VR&E appointment all about? Who are you going to be meeting with? Why does it matter? Second, how to prepare for it. And third, we're going to talk about how veterans blow that appointment and essentially, destroy their case or harm their case to where you need to, pull in a big dog to fix it. And luckily, most of my clients are usually pretty well versed on what VR&E does. But they do sometimes run into challenges, and even some of the most prepared veterans will still get a denial from an unscrupulous federal employee, vocational rehabilitation counselor. It happens. So there's no guarantees with how these people are going to do things within the agency, or the unspoken verbal policies or written but not published local policies. You just don't know what you're going into at each office. And so it's difficult to prepare for everything. But what we're going to talk about here is we're going to throw out a wide net, and hopefully, oh my God, this camera is really not working for me. Okay, come on. You can do it. Focus on the face. Focus on right here. Not behind me. Not front. Hello. All right. Is it going to work? Nope. It wants to really get the books. My son's art on the bookcases are apparently very intriguing to the AI that is operating this camera. Okay, are we good? Okay, now we're good. All right, there we go. Hopefully it maintains focus. I'm going to keep my head real still. Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so Sean Velasquez, I see your question, and I will answer it. Teaching credential, we will talk about that at the end once I'm done talking about this. So anyway, VR&E, you apply, boom. You get the meeting notice, and they send you, hey, we need your information about blah, 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 blah. And so usually what will happen is they will request some vocational information. They'll request that you fill out a questionnaire, 1902W. Then they will also usually, but not always, request a career scope assessment of your interests and aptitudes. Now, that information may come at different points. I have seen it come at different points. And so I just want you to be aware that sometimes I've seen some veterans get the career scope after the initial eval. That really shouldn't be what happens, but or at least historically. But that doesn't mean that your office doesn't do it differently. There could be a lot of different things. But one thing I know for sure, you will get the 1902W. It says 28-1902W VR&E questionnaire. That is a questionnaire that has information in it, just kind of generalized stuff, and it gives the VRC an opportunity to get very quick information from you to better understand your case. So it's important to think of the 1902W as a roadmap. Okay? This is a roadmap. Okay? I'll get into that a little bit later. Then we have, frequently, job analysis documentation. This is information, the VRC. Now, this may come after the first appointment, right? But if it doesn't, it comes before. I'm just going to explain what it is. So frequently what we'll get from VR&E, this is usually for the evaluation and planning portion, which comes after your entitlement. However, I've seen it come at different points. So this is job market information that talks about the jobs that you want or the type of career that you want. One thing to note is that when you go into VR&E will frequently disregard the information that you provide. So it's important to, first of all, be very succinct in the information that you're providing. So like if you know that you want to be a lawyer, or you know that you want to be a physician or a psychologist, write this down. Write it down on the 1902W. Okay. If you do nothing else, take nothing else out of this conversation we're having today. Write down the thing that you want to do very expressly in the 1902W. Be very clear about it. Okay. That will hopefully avoid confusion. Not to say it won't or will, but it'll help. So anyway, 1902W, job market information. Go look at that. A lot of people don't realize that I like using the lawyer thing because that's what I do and it's the thing I'm most familiar with. But physicians also could potentially fall in this camp. There are many types of attorneys. There are many types of physicians that do different ththings. There are many types of psychologists that do different things. Many types of professors that do different things. Okay, researchers. Lots of areas where there is a requirement for a higher level training, like up to doctorate. Just to be aware that when you're doing the job evaluation documentation, job market analysis, labor market analysis, whatever you want to call it, that you can put in multiple paths to becoming a lawyer, because there are multiple jobs that a lawyer can do that somebody else usually can't do. So just be aware, when you're filling out that documentation, not shoot yourself in the foot. So if you're pretty sure that you want to be a lawyer, just put that down and fight for it. Don't put up with any guff, especially if you're somebody that has the aptitude and interest to do it, and you're also very clear about whether you have an employment handicap, serious employment handicap, stuff like that. Okay, so that's the information you get before you go into the appointment. Okay, just be aware. Comply with the request, reasonable request for information, because you're required to. Because this first appointment is a forensic exam. Again, it is a forensic exam. You're not going in there to get your counselor to be a buddy or to be your friend or to talk through your challenges with your spouse, stuff like that. That is not the purpose of that appointment. Hey, Andreas. I'll get to that question in a bit. Thank you for asking. Again, if you're watching this, and you're on YouTube or you're on Facebook on either my journalism attorney page or the other page, which is for the Voc Rehab group, ask a question and I'll do my best to get to it at the end of the live stream. So we've talked about what's happening first, okay? Then you're preparing for what's called a forensic exam. This is not a counseling session with your childhood therapist. This is a session where the person is required by law to develop evidence to address what you're conveying, right? So the information that you're conveying will be converted into a legal document for adjudication purposes. A lot of veterans are not informed that this is happening, or if they are, they don't appreciate what is going on and what it means, okay? So like anything, if you are going into a deposition for court, or if you're going into a surgery, or if you're going into a final exam, let's say, in school, whatever you're going in for, you're going to prepare for it, especially when there's going to be an end result that you don't have control over, right? So you don't have control over your grades. You don't have control over necessarily how your client is going to behave in a deposition, or what a judge might do, right? So it's up to you, and me as an attorney, for example, to put my best foot forward and to be strategic and to make sure that the information I'm conveying is accurate and presents in a way that makes a ton of sense to the counselor. And part of that is understanding what the counselor needs to know and not needs to know, right? Because they only have a few minutes to review your information, and then it's over. That's it. I've seen some cases where the veteran tells me that they only met with the counselor for 5 to 15 minutes, and then boom, denial. Well, how can you consider all that information within that short amount of time? The answer is you can't. But the other answer is, because VRE is understaffed and has been chronically understaffed for well over a decade and appears to not have any kind of ambition to fix the chronic staffing issue other than by buying more software to vendors that have relationships existing with VRE and with Veteran Benefits Administration, like their fixes are not the right ones. The right ones need to be to streamline their policies so that they're less onerous to the veteran, and then also to hire more humans to help that are qualified to do this. And VRE and VA generally has tried to lower the bar on credentialing for practically everything, whether it deals with veteran readiness and employment, or whether it deals with a therapist, or whether it deals with seeing a physician at VA. These are all bars and standards that VA has experimented with lowering to try to minimize the cost of their labor force, while also trying to at least maintain the appearance that veterans are getting the services that they are promised. But that's not always how it works, right? Just so that you're aware. So, all right. So we're going to the appointment. The person wants to know. They're supposed to figure out three things mainly. First, do you have a serious employment, first, do you have an employment handicap? Second, do you have a serious employment handicap? And then third, is it feasible for you to, I see another question here about the time frame for application approval. I'll talk about that in a little bit once I break down this other information. So, serious employment handicap, and then feasibility. And that's definitely not, hey, I see ya. No, I know that's not always not how it always works. Yeah, I know. But this is what's supposed to happen. So when you go in for your VRE appointment, the very first appointment, they're developing evidence for and against you that will be potentially used against you. Now, I think that should be disclosed to the veteran, that it could be used against you. And that in any instance where you're conveying this, I think a veteran should have a right to have an attorney present with them, just like you would if you were a criminal or anyone else, any other time. Where what you're saying can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's kind of what we have within VRE, right? It can, and if it is against you, will be used against you. So it's unfortunate that they don't disclose that to veterans, but I think that maybe by design, but it just is what it is. And anyway, so employment handicap, serious employment handicap, and then feasibility. When it comes to employment handicap, there's a lot of factors here, so I'm going to encourage you to review the section 38 CFR 21.50, 21.501, and 21.502. And 21.53, I'm sorry, I said this wrong, 50, 51, 52, and then 53. Okay, go through that because that'll help explain what's going on during the initial evaluation. There's also policies that discuss this in the M28C. The M28C is evolving all the time, so just note that when you look at it one day, it may be different the next day. So just be aware that that's happening. But point is, there are certain factors that they're required to look at by law. But generalized here, for the sake of a live stream, they're basically looking to see, first, do you have a vocational impairment? I would argue that practically every disabled veteran has a vocational impairment, because otherwise you would not have a disability rating from VR&E. They may not always be true, but I think usually it's probably going to be true most of the vast majority of the times. So the vast majority of the times, the person is going to have a, sorry about this, I'd hope that this thing would work better, but it doesn't, so that's okay. Anyway, point is that what they're looking for is vocational impairment. Then they're looking for whether, on an employment handicap, is the vocational impairment substantially caused by the veteran's service-connected disabilities, not disabilities overall, what they're looking for. So your service-connected disabilities must be, to some degree, related to your impairment. Again, this should be true for practically every veteran, but may not be. There could be other variables going on. But most veterans, this would be true. And then third, don't get me wrong, I also see VRE mess this up a lot. So I'll see cases that are obviously the person has vocational impairment and then they screwed up. But anyway, the third is whether or not you have overcome the effects of the vocational impairment, and that's usually through qualifying for, gaining, maintaining suitable employment. Suitable employment is defined as employment that's consistent with your aptitudes, abilities, and interests that doesn't impermissibly aggravate your disabilities. So that's something that, okay, I see some people, master's, doctor. Okay, I'll get into that in a second. If you're asking questions, you're in the Facebook forum, I encourage you to click on the connect tag so that your name shows up so I can actually address you directly. But either way, that's fine. And so if you have the employment handicap, then VRE is obligated to assess you for a serious employment handicap. The serious employment handicap, the subtle but important shift is they have to determine if your vocational impairment is significant. Most veterans, probably 60% or more, are found to have a significant vocational impairment and therefore end up with a serious employment handicap. Not always, but usually. So there's about, I want to say 60 to 70% of veterans historically are found to have a serious employment handicap. The criteria there is, are your vocational impairments significant? Are those significant impairments connected with your service-connected disabilities? And there's a lot of other factors that VRE must consider for this. So I find that if you have the employment handicap, that bar is a little bit kind of higher. I look at it as being higher as an attorney because there's just so many factors that VRE must consider for a serious employment handicap, and that's where most of the errors come, is how they address it. They tend to address it incorrectly. They also address employment handicap incorrectly, and that's why veterans hire me to help them. But this, it's a complicated process. But if you don't prepare, here the key thing for this first appointment is first, take care of all the documentation they provide you in advance. If you have questions, email them right away to get those questions answered. Okay, because you want to show up, Johnny or Jane on the spot with the information that they need to make a decision. If you have questions, email them right away. The 1902W is very confusing at times, and people may not realize it, but it can be. The big hurdle with the 1902W is that it does not, see, the camera keeps doing that. I hate this camera. I now do not like this camera. I will probably have to send it back if I can't figure out why it does that. Point is with, where was I? So with the 1902W, there's a lot of limited space. So if you are filling that out and you run out of space, put an attachment on the document and include it. That could be, you really should focus on your disabilities and how they affect you in your ability to gain and maintain suitable employment. So make sure that you explain that like as best you can. This is where veterans frequently screw up because they don't take the time to answer this questionnaire fully to and then get caught because their answers are used against them. And very important, especially things like, are your disabilities getting worse? If that's true, you better select the right answer, and how your SCDs affect you in the workplace. And if it does at all, you better select the right things. Veterans frequently skip this information because they either don't see it or they're in a hurry, and it is then used against them because they maybe just missed it, So, and if it is used against you, then you want to provide new evidence to explain that you missed it, right? And so you maybe would submit a supplemental claim and get that articulated. Anyway, point is, all right, so we went through the serious employment handicap, then feasibility, and basically that is it feasible for you to complete vocational training toward a vocational goal? That's not specifically to a specific vocational goal, just generally speaking, So there's a lot of steps there as far as the feasibility. I won't really get into here because most veterans are found to be feasible, not all though. So definitely take a look at the regs to see how that might affect you. Then, so when you're preparing, again, make sure you have all the documentation prepared. make sure that you really understand for this first appointment and are able to articulate, because they're going to want you to speak this, even if maybe speaking is not your strong suit. They'll want you to orally relate how this stuff affects you. So it's super important, again, to make sure that you're prepared. Most veterans that I know go into this appointment thinking it's an automatic entitlement because they have a disability, and go for it and end up getting denied. It happens all the time. So anyway, again, make sure you're prepared. This is not a joke. Go to, if you have questions, my website is on here, my blog. There's a ton of free stuff on that blog about VRE. I write articles about it. Join our Facebook group. It's in the comments below. We have almost 40,000 veterans in that group who have a lot of experience with VR&E personally, and they can talk about their experiences, and you can learn from that. So again, it's a really important resource. This is free. It's free resources, guys. There are also some low-cost resources. Of course, if you get into a snag and you end up needing to hire an attorney to appeal a bad decision, that's what I do. But that's not free. And so, I encourage you to research this. You cannot hire an attorney before VA develops a case against you, unfortunately, because that's the way that Congress has allowed VA to create these the particular laws. So you have to let VA develop a case against you first. And only then can you hire an attorney. Illegal alien can hire an attorney. Anyone else usually can hire an attorney to do. Veterans can usually hire an attorney for practically anything else, just not when the government might owe them money. Okay, if the government owes you money, you as a veteran do not have a right to counsel whenever you choose. Okay, you have to use free help, and maybe that's okay for most. The VSOs are pretty good when it comes to disability comp. There are a lot of benefit types that the VSOs are not well equipped to address, including veteran readiness and employment. Some are, but I would say it's been my experience that most don't know how to challenge an opinion from a VRC, or don't know how to address bad policies or laws. They follow those policies or laws, and we as attorneys can challenge those in a court. And that's why God created attorneys. It's to fight the hard stuff. So anyway, that's how to prepare for this first meeting, what to think about, all of that. So I hope that helps. Then how do veterans blow it? This is the last part that I wanted to make sure that we're aware of. And veterans frequently blow it first by not preparing, right? They think it's an automatic entitlement. They don't read. So they just present themselves without any kind of thought about how their disabilities affect their ability to gain and maintain suitable employment. That is the one key thing that you must know and you must prepare. I would encourage you to write it out before your appointment, just so that you have it like kind of crystallized in your mind, so that if you have to articulate it, then you can. So just really super important to make sure that you have that ironed out. Of course, if your disabilities do not cause a difficulty, preventing you from gaining, maintaining suitable employment, odds are you'll get denied, and that would probably be an appropriate outcome. So it's just very important to do the research up front before you present things to VA. It's not unlike your disability comp cases. This is something a lot of VSOs don't do, which is to encourage the veteran to go through their record and then to write out exactly why they think the disability that they're claiming should be granted, and then point it out in the record. The very key thing, VSOs tend to never do that. And so a lot of the cases I work on that are appeals on disability comp will have the basic application and then an attachment, and the attachment just has bullet points basically of each disability, and that's it. Not much other information in there, and VA just goes from there. What we're seeing is that a lot of disability benefits evaluations by contractors are then incomplete, or they're not done properly because the veteran hasn't presented all the information. Then the veteran has to go hire an attorney because they allowed the VA to develop adverse evidence against them without proper counsel. I didn't make this system, but it's what we're stuck with for right now anyway. Veterans don't have a right to an attorney at the front end of any claim. They have to be denied. They have to allow VA the opportunity to develop evidence against them. And only after that point, once they get the decision back, can they then contest it. So it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of how it is. That's what we're dealing with in this particular system. When the system works great, it works great. When it works poorly, it definitely works about as bad as you ever see. So anyway, So veterans frequently don't prepare. They frequently don't know how their service-connected disabilities affect their ability to gain and maintain suitable employment. So they go in there and they talk about, maybe, let's say you have a job. Let's say the job aggravates your disabilities, but you are focused on money, and you bring up that, because this is the thing that's front and center of your mind, you're not focused on how it aggravates your disabilities, you're just frustrated about not making enough cash to live on or something like that. And that is what you focus on the whole time. You're focusing on the wrong stuff. Sure, extra money is important, and it is clear that if you become an attorney or a doctor, that you will get extra money. That is true. If you have an MBA and you get approved for an MBA and you come out of it and you become a consultant, you will make a lot of money. That is true. But that cannot be the focus of why you're trying to go there. If you're going and you want to be a lawyer, but you're only focused on telling them you want to go to law school, and you focus on nothing else, you will probably get denied. Don't focus on the wrong stuff. Focus on your vocational impairment and your vocation, like what the vocation is that you want to do. And everything else will, kind of fall in place here. But don't go in and say, well, I want to get a PhD. So what? We don't do that. And that's what they'll say. Now, the error, in my opinion, is that counselors that don't dig deeper, that is an error. Again, a veteran going into these, you're usually not already a doctor, lawyer, vocational counselor, or anything else. So you don't have a lot of this experience. You don't understand what you're presenting. And that's not your fault. It should be the fault of the VRC for not fully developing and addressing all your contentions and not asking appropriate questions, such as, okay, I understand that you want a doctorate. Why? Because I want to make more money. Okay. And again, usually the counselor will stop there. Okay, wants more money, denied. But at the core of it could be, I have PTSD, I don't play well with others, I am in a job that requires me to play well with others, and I am a one sandbox, one kid kind of a person, and I don't play well with others, therefore I need greater independence in my career, so on and so forth. And you go through this, sequence of explaining how, first, your disabilities affect you, and then second, how a vocational goal, such as maybe you want to become a professor, maybe you want to become an associate researcher, maybe you want to become a lot of things, doctor, lawyer, whatever. So you focus on the end goal. You don't focus on the intermediate objective, which is getting the degree. Sure, yeah, we know that a lawyer usually requires completion of a JD, becoming licensed. That's important, and there's nuances to it. But then, in addition to that, you have the PhD, professor, a lot of different options. Focus on the end goal. So I see a lot of people that don't. And that is, again, how veterans blow it. They focus on the wrong stuff. You're focusing on basically red herrings. Those are, important to you, but it's not what the VRC needs to know. The VRC needs to know whether you have a serious employment handicap, or whether training is feasible. That's what they need to know. And you have to get to the core of that. Veterans frequently get denied because they're employed and they don't know how to convey their aggravation, and the VRC doesn't dig deeper to learn more about what's happening, and then the veteran gets denied. It happens a lot. So again, how veterans blow it, they don't know what the program is, they don't do the research ahead of time. I created a low-cost course and downloadable PDF that helps veterans with this. We have a lot of free materials on the website and courses that are free for veterans to go through to understand what VRE should do and what it doesn't do. So I just want you all to be aware of that, and that there are options out there that you should pursue. And if you don't pursue them, the odds of being denied are very high. Again, assuming that you don't magically know how to convey all this information right away. And I've run into this myself personally, and I know what the I would call them tricks that VRCs use to kind of bump veterans out of the program to keep their numbers good so that they don't get caught in a backlog of claims themselves, and then end up, denying veterans wrongly. It happens a lot. Luckily, we're getting a lot of those corrected now that I've been doing this for as long. I mean, I've been an attorney now for over 10 years, and VRE helped with that, but it didn't come without a significant fight, and veterans need more information. They need better access to counsel right away, not after VA has been allowed to develop a case against them. I don't care what you say. That is un-American to allow veterans to go in. If they want access to an attorney, they should be able to hire one whenever they want, just like any other American or illegal immigrant or criminal. Veterans should at least have the same rights as criminals. That's my take on it. So anyway, I'm going to go through some of these questions and then we will wrap it up. So basically, let's see, one veteran asks, let's see if I can pull this up so I can address you directly. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing the names, and so I'm going to see if I can here, hopefully. Let's see here. Unbelievable that this doesn't pop up the right way. Okay. So we have a couple veterans asking questions. One of the questions is about what is the time frame from application to approval. So that depends on the office. I'm hearing a lot of bad stories where people aren't even getting their initial appointments for like 4 months. So that's not great. In fact, that's improper to force you to wait that long for that type of an appointment. And there's a lot of reasons why, but VRE just seems to be unable to hire and retain competent and qualified vocational counselors because they burn them out with their quota systems and unreasonable, gotcha games between them and IG and other folks. So anyway, next question is, I am out of post 9/11 and have to use VRE already, but I need to get my teaching credential. Can I use VRE again? Probably, but it depends on, again, all the factors I just talked about. You'll have to, I would say just apply, see what happens. Possible, but again, each case is different. Andreas Luna asks, approved 4-year program, but my entitlement allows me to BH. Okay, counselor said he can request to extend. Yeah, that's true. So a counselor, if you get an extension, like let's say you get approved to become a psychologist or something, and it requires at least 4 years of school and whatnot. So yeah, you can get an extension for that. If you're approved, again, not everyone's going to get approved, but if you're approved, then yes, they can extend it significantly. So food for thought there. Then we have also add that used my GI Bill 1 month. So it could be possible to get your GI Bill retroactively through retroactive induction to get your GI Bill replenished. I've had a couple cases like that. So you may want to ask about that from the VRC, and they should hopefully address it. Let's see here. I'm TDIU. The VRC was reassigned, placed into ILS. New VRC was reassigned in June. I never heard from her. Called me yesterday and told me I was denied for VRE or self-employment. Okay, for self-employment, all I received was ILS. Okay. The state of Texas Workforce Commission is delaying me until VA notates to them that I'm eligible. It's clear that none of these people know how to do their job. Right. I designed a circular system for green construction materials and have a powerful circle of support with a nationally recognized senior consultant. Oh, wow, that's awesome. How do I sign up for my assistance? Okay, so my website is in the next to my face for the law firm. Go into the law firm and ask for a one of our free consults, and somebody will get to you to find out what's going on and to see if we can help, that type of stuff. So that's how you do it, and somebody will reach out to you from my team to assess or at least to gather your information, and then I'm the one that actually looks into it. So that's how that works. And then another veteran counselor approved me only for PMP cert, project management cert, because she said I'm lucky even that I'm employed. Okay, while I still would like the cert, I'm looking into a different field. Can I challenge it all? So the answer there is yes. I have had similarly situated clients. And so, yeah, there's a way to challenge it. There's a lot of different things to do. So, where there's a will, there's a way. As long as the evidence, of course, is correct and clear, then it's something that a person could challenge. And for you, what you're talking about here, it sounds like, is you probably have an undergrad and you want additional certifications so that you can move into a different field that maybe doesn't aggravate your disabilities, which is part of why the counselor is still talking to you. So that means they probably found you to have an employment handicap and possibly serious employment handicap. The challenge here is that you are wanting to get into a different field, which you can't do with a PMP cert. And so you can, assuming they give you a decision somehow, and they decide that case, then you can appeal it. So if you have a question about that and you want us to take a look at the law practice, again, the link is or the Benjamin Krause law is how you want to reach out if you want. And again, we have a lot of other resources too that are free. So do whatever makes sense for you. I see some people being approved for masters and doctorates. That is true. Lots of people get approved for masters and doctorates. I was approved for doctorate, a Juris Doctor. And lots of veterans are approved. It's true. A lot of counselors out there are really doing a great job. There are some repeat offenders that don't. And we get a lot of denials from those folks. And then there's still some that do an okay job, but tend to short circuit what the veteran needs. And that's not good either. But that does happen. Let's see here. So I think they intentionally make things difficult. This is a good one. I'll put it up. So, David, I think they make it difficult on disabled vets. I agree. I think that they could do more and don't. Second questions from Andreas. Good questions. If a counselor says he can approve a purchase item but wants you to purchase, then reimburse. Can I insist that they I wouldn't bother with them. I mean, if you have the money, even on loan, getting VRE to approve stuff. See, that camera is this camera's junk. It doesn't work right. Anyway, so why is it not? Okay, come on. Really? Anyway, I wouldn't wait on them. It'll take them months sometimes to get things sorted out, and even then you might get the wrong thing. So you doing it in weeks, even if it takes a little bit more, I wouldn't rely on them to reimburse in a time. Well, the reimbursement will take a while too, but having them do it, there's a reason he's telling you this, and probably they're having a hard time getting things like that approved. So that's probably my guess at his office. So just went through 30. Says you can use TDIU, VRE with TDIU. I now have verbal confirmation that I'm approved, waiting for written. They throw those things out there, hoping about it. Right. I agree. That is frequently what I see, and people just don't get into it. So Josh Oman has a question. I'll get to that in a second. Josh, appreciate it. That's a good question. So Josh asks, using DAV versus you, what do you think of DAV? So of the VSOs, I would say the DAV has the best, probably most robust training program as it relates to disability compensation. As far as veteran readiness and employment, I could tell you my experience. I haven't been surveying what they're telling veterans lately, but I plan to. Not just DAV, but just VSOs in general. It's been my experience that veterans, when they get an adverse decision, especially if it's an adverse opinion, that whether it's DAV or other VSOs, will tend to kind of take the VRC at their word and not challenge. It's been my experience. It doesn't mean that there aren't DAV personnel out there that won't go after them on that stuff. I'm sure that there are. It's just that the consensus across the board for VSOs is that they're pretty weak on helping veterans with veteran readiness and employment. That doesn't mean that they're not awesome at it. Usually what they're doing is disability compensation cases, and really limited to that. They may help with some other things, but so like if you need help with a clinical appeal, they probably won't help. If you need help with a med mal case, probably won't help. If you need help with an 1151, which is essentially a med mal case, but for benefits, their help is, again, going to be pretty limited because you're going after the VA there. And it's just been my experience using VSOs in those kind of contentious environments is not really beneficial. But sometimes it's all the help you get, If you can't afford an attorney, then a VSO is better than zero. So, and their help is, free. So if you value free help and you value supporting that system of free over anything else, then, follow that path. And if you are somebody that wants to, is not above hiring an attorney for things, whether it's a divorce or buying property or buying a business or dealing with the VA, then have kind of a thought about it and think it through. But DAV versus me. I mean, what DAV has? I'm one guy. They have a huge team, so I can't speak for every DAV person because I don't know every DAV person, but I can just speak to what I've been told by veterans who are in our group, veterans that I represent, and get feedback if they actually did receive support from a VSO. So that's what I can speak to, but I can't say like the entire. I mean, they have attorneys that work at the agent at DAV, right? And they have a law firm that's on counsel for them that takes up their appeals for disability comp anyway, named Chisholm Kilpatrick. So, so they have attorneys that handle the big stuff once it goes through the board. My focus for VRE really is to try to get it fixed at the agency level first, because the board right now has taken 3 to 4 years to get decisions back, just like it used to before the AMA was implemented. So it's just not the best way to do it. So another Facebook user, another veteran, husband stumbled into first interview by chance looking for resources. Here, I'm going to move this down a little bit so it's easier to read. Looking for resources. Attended first, no insight, not even certain what VRE was. Got approved. But he's also personable, extroverted, and was able to tie his disabilities to employability issues honestly off the top of his head. Absolutely. A lot of veterans can't do that. But yes, that's awesome. We later realized how difficult it is to get approved, and we're a bit flabbergasted. Anyway, he's now approved and upcoming with a proposal for business management BS. He created a website for his VA counselor with step-by-step goals. Cool. Created a website for his VA counselor with a website. I guess I don't know exactly what you mean there. But anyway, that awesome. Now, one thing I would point out, though, is that in this era of kind of flooded labor market and coming into a recession, dealing with disabilities, it sounds as if your VRC lowballed your husband. And so what I would say here is, I'm just looking at it without knowing anything else, I would go as far as to say that if your husband was found to have a serious employment handicap, odds are he was lowballed right here, because VRE is required to consider higher level training in certain circumstances, and including a master's degree, and I would bet here it doesn't sound like the counselor did that. And I have talked with senior VRC leadership over the past decade, and consensus, if they're being honest, is that it really does require a master's degree to help a veteran overcome a definite disadvantage when they're dealing again, with other applicants for the same jobs. And the additional training helps them overcome that handicap. So, food for thought here. So I'm happy to hear that your husband's happy with the outcome, but not to throw something in the punch bowl here. But odds are he got lowballed by the counselor. I would say higher than 50% odds, just based on what you're telling me. Now, if the veteran had only an employment handicap, then it could be that management BS is all that they can get approved. However, if he did have a serious employment handicap, and I would guess that that could be what happened because you mentioned multiple disabilities, things like that. Odds are probably had a serious employment handicap. If true, then could have been approved and should have been at least considered for higher level training in a graduate program in addition to the undergrad. What VRCs frequently do there is say, well, we'll see how you do in the undergrad, and then after you graduate, then we'll talk about it. Well, by the time you graduate and you talk about it, then they say, oh, well, you're qualified for suitable employment, therefore deny. So you got to kind of get it all wrapped into one. It's safer that way. Anyway, thanks for the feedback. I think that's awesome. I'm going to ping you here because I think it's interesting that that was the experience, because it sounds like I would be concerned that your husband could have got a higher level training and wasn't informed of that by the counselor and simply just happy because he won something. So that happens a lot. Charlie, I'm approved for master's. Here's the master's program. Great. And 4 years later, I still haven't completed because my mental health, oh yeah, I lose focus to complete assignments. I'm good at working on my own at my own pace, but I could, okay. So the entrepreneurial track is, in my opinion, becoming more of a waste of time and harder to get approved. So buyer beware. I wouldn't count on getting much from the entrepreneurial track right now. It's usually a headache for veterans. Some win and they do well. Others just, oh man, they just don't. It doesn't work out. So food for thought. Coincides with what I did for my BA Real Estate Management and Master's System of Transportation. I'd like to address food desserts. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I just, entrepreneurial route, I'm kind of like, good luck. You're not going to get much support, especially with that educational background. Sustainable transportation, I'm not even sure what you would do with that. But anyway, all I can say is I wish you the best. And entrepreneurship track, probably not that great. If you're having a hard time with school, I would suggest reduced work tolerance and applying for that to get full tuition, full subsistence, but allowing you to go to school part-time. But still receiving full-time rate if it's related to your disabilities. It's something that can be done. And then what else? VRC told me yesterday that she had already paid for $3,500 of equipment and states that I am not afforded any more funding to purchase. Okay, so I mean, I don't know. I mean, it sounds like you got really kind of juiced here. So $3,500. I mean, they can approve for self-employment up to, I think it's $25,000, and then in the same regional office, I want to say it's up to $50,000, and then above that requires approval from central office. But that's, I hope that helps. So I think you're getting lowballed here. I would put it in writing. Do not trust that they are properly processing things that you convey verbally. Write it down, put it in a 4138 personal statement, and then send it in. Do that, and I think that would be a better approach. Can you answer if Bell Legal represent clients? I'm not sure what this means, Hugh. So I'm not doing Camp Lejeune. I'm not part of that litigation. So I'm not totally sure. Man, this camera is just horrible. I'm so sorry. So I don't know if I can answer this question, but yeah, I don't know. That's not something I'm doing right now. Facebook, let's see. I will take them and consider push for it. Okay, I'm not sure who that is, but awesome. I'm glad somebody's listening. That's great. Missed time window for post 9/11 GI Bill. Life was tough. I get it. A Master College Institute has gone bust. Okay, that's not great. Is it likely I can get a master's through VRE? So I don't know enough on this to tell you one way or the other. What I can tell you is, okay, whoever just posted this, they're saying like a long question. Man, I wish technology like these social media platforms worked the way they used to. They've been so focused on censoring people that the systems just don't work right anymore. Hey, Brooke, I see your question. I would encourage you, just post it, and if I can get to it, great. If I can't, I understand. You know what I mean? But I have to shut this off here in a second. So I wish I could get, yeah, just, Yeah, it's hard. Nothing is showing up right. So I'm sorry. Yeah, the system just doesn't want to work correctly today. So anyway, I have to wrap up here. So if you have any other questions, there's a lot of people in the group. Feel free to answer or ask those questions. If you have a denial and you want, a free case eval from my firm, we don't charge for that. So we'll give you feedback, on assuming we can give feedback anyway. Sometimes there are questions we get that I'm not sure what the answer is, but I'll do my best to give productive feedback if possible. And so anyway, having said all that, the big takeaway here is prepare for the first appointment. Do everything the counselor is asking you to do and present that at the first appointment. Understand how your disabilities relate to your vocational impairments. Be able to articulate that, so prepare in advance. And then afterwards, don't focus on the wrong things. Don't focus on the education only. Don't focus on the higher pay only. Things like that. You got to focus on the holistic view of what VRE does, which is helping veterans gain and maintain suitable employment to the maximum extent feasible. Again, key word here, maximum extent feasible. Anyway, so I'm going to close this up with a quick prayer, and otherwise, I appreciate y'all. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you guide the individuals that are participating on this video. Ask that you share it with or spread this, despite some of the challenges we have with sharing information on social media, especially information that maybe conveys a more accurate picture of what the federal government is doing. Those kinds of messages seem to be suppressed by the current system, and we ask, Lord, that you help veterans on this call gain and maintain suitable employment to the maximum extent feasible and become leaders in society, and doctors and lawyers and executives, professors, and to get out there to share our message and hope that we counter the other messages that are going on right now that are attempting to destroy our country. And we ask, Lord, that you help us become stronger, help us become better leaders, help us to have our eyes wide open when we go in for these appointments, and to shed light into the darkness within the Department of Veterans Affairs so that we can better access the benefits that Congress has enacted at the will of the American people. So we love you, Lord. Thank you for this opportunity. Amen. All right, folks, really appreciate your time. And Hugh asked one last question. Do we rep MST? I do have MST patients, if that's what your question is, or clients, I mean. So we do work on that, depending on what it is. So I hope that all of you have a great weekend, and we'll tune in next time. Take care.